Con cò bay đi ăn đêm, đổ phải cành mềm, lộn cổ xuống ao. Ông ơi, ông vớt tôi nào, tôi có lòng nào, ông hãy sao mang. Có sao thì sao nước trong, đừng sao nước đục, ở đau lòng có
If someone were to come up to me and ask, "What is your favorite kids' book?" I would have to say, A House for Hermit Crab by Eric Carle. And as funny as that may sound, I have always found myself somewhat aligned and connected to that hermit crab. Now, don't get me wrong, I do appreciate the visual illustrations and the simplicity that is embedded in each page, but I also find this little 32-page book to resonate powerful undertones of moving forward in life and searching for one's identity. How is that even possible, you might ask? Well, I suppose it's impolite for me to continue without even introducing myself to you. Where are my manners? My name is Vincent Trinh. I'm in my mid-20s, a Vietnamese American who's majoring in English, and quite frankly, I have no idea of who or where I came from. My life has always been a constant momentum, and by that, I mean I have moved back and forth all over the States. From Los Angeles to Chicago, then to the Bay, then back to Los Angeles, again to Chicago, and then back to the Bay. Relationships with friends and families are somewhat lost because of constant moving, and in a sense that connection that is part of my identity is lost too as well. You know what they say, the people you are close with is what makes you who you are as a person. Or so they say. You see, being raised in a Vietnamese household, the culture just echoes in the air, but somehow it never really resonates to me. Both mom and dad surprisingly enjoys retelling their story as a Vietnamese boat people, spending 6 days and 7 nights on a small boat in the South China Sea. But the truth is, I never really did appreciate my culture or the struggle that they went through. At times I find the language to be loud, visceral, and gut-wrenching to the ear. Sharp, chattering fish market language pierced into my ear back and forth, left and right. However, as college kicks in, and my connection with anything that is Vietnamese fades away, I began to find a yearning and desire to reconnect with my mother tongue. I felt that even though I don't speak Vietnamese or look Vietnamese, I felt that there is still something Vietnamese that binds me internally. So what did I do? I decided to book a ticket to Vietnam and figure out that missing link. Coming from California to Vietnam was definitely a drastic change. From its humid 90-degree weather to its sea of mopeds, I was completely cultural shock. However, if there is one thing that struck me the most about this place, that is, the level of acceptance was evident. You see, in the United States, I've always somehow get this feeling that I'm just some Asian guy in my own country. Bigotry, stereotype, tension never really seemed to vanish. I felt that I can never fully assimilate myself as an American. It's true though. I mean, we're living in the 21st century where people are acclimated to one another, but yet I still somehow feel that level of tension continues to suspend around me. However, in Vietnam, I don't get that feeling at all. In Vietnam, I'm just a guy, a regular guy arranged together in a mosaic of other Vietnamese people. Food vendors, burning incense, sweet smell of banana leaves trailing through your nose. These are just some of the elements of Vietnam that somehow comes to me naturally with age. The people here are frugal as they are lively and bustling. They don't waste anything and believe that anything can be turned into something new. They believe in a strong work ethic, waking up early as 3 in the morning in order to make the most out of their days. Locals and villagers are closely knitted. Everybody knows everybody. Conversations turns into jokes. Jokes turns into arguments. Arguments turn to conversations again. These are just some of the sweet melodic dialogues that echoes into my eardrum as I carry myself through the inner street of this misunderstood country. However, as my stay in Vietnam progressed, I began to realize the veneer and facade of some of these attractions in Vietnam. I began to venture out further away from the city and into the heart of the village. What amazes me is that even though the war ceases 36 years ago, the residue of the Vietnam War is still apparent today. Vietnam is definitely catered to tourism, but if one has any connection with any Vietnamese family, the truth is, Vietnam is considerably one of the poorest countries in the Eastern Hemisphere. The dichotomy between the rich and the poor is evident. There is no middle class. You're either raised and prosper into a rich family or born hungry. For instance, the poor essentially has no access to clean water. They bathe, they play, cook, not to mention the toilet system, all comes directly from the same water source. Healthcare is also an issue too. There are hardly any medical doctors within the village. A person has to commute nearly 3 hours to the nearest city in order to receive any form of health services. But yet, what amazes me even till today is that even though these people are poor and penniless right down to their fingertips, they are nevertheless deprived by their happiness. These people are happy and content, and what ensures their happiness is the value of family ties and friends. External things like money or income are irrelevant to their happiness, but their family bonds is what they value as quality of life. It's these eternal things like family, close ones, and friends is what defines the definition of home. Home is where the heart feels the happiest. Home is a place of sense and belonging. And as cliche as this may sound, home is where the heart is. And as for the hermit crab, home is where he wanted to be. Home is where I wanted to be.